I pressed my hand against the front door, the cold wood stealing the warmth from my skin. Just this morning, I made toast in that kitchen. I watered the plant on the windowsill. And now, I was outside, without my keys, without my phone, without any explanation. My name is Margaret, and I am 74 years old. I've lived in this house for 42 of them. Every corner holds a memory, every room, a story. And today, I was locked out like a stranger. It started with small things. A little forgetfulness here, a misplaced sweater there. My son Daniel said he was worried. His wife Erica started visiting more often, watching me like I was about to fall over at any second. But I was fine. Tired sometimes, yes. A little slower than I used to be. But I could still read my books, cook my meals, pay my bills. I wasn't helpless. Yet here I was, standing on my porch in slippers, trying not to cry. "Daniel," I called again. "Please, let me come inside. I don't understand what's going on." No answer. I walked to the side window and peeked through. I saw Erica inside, arms folded, watching me. She looked annoyed. Like I was an inconvenience. Like I was some neighbor who overstayed her welcome. The door opened just a crack. "Mom," Daniel said, his voice stiff. "We talked about this. You need supervision now. We're only doing this because we care." Supervision? I stepped back, heart racing. I'm not a child. This is my house. "You're confused," he said gently. "Just come with us for a few days. We'll explain everything later." "No," I whispered. "I'm not going anywhere." He sighed and closed the door again. I sat on the steps, stunned. A neighbor passed by walking their dog. They waved. I smiled weakly, pretending everything was fine, pretending I wasn't being shut out of my own life. Hours passed. I had nowhere to go, no phone to call for help, no car keys, just question and a growing knot in my chest. That's when I heard it. Through the living room window, I heard Erica's voice, low and sharp. "If she asks again, tell her the doctor said she's losing it." My breath caught. Losing it? No. 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 I remember everything. I remember giving birth to Daniel in the middle of a snowstorm. I remember teaching 5th grade history and watching kids grow up to be nurses and lawyers and kind, good people. I remember Erica's wedding, how I stayed up until 3 a.m., sewing her veil because the store-bought one didn't sit right. Losing it? I shook my head, tears stinging my eyes. This wasn't love. This wasn't care. This was something else. I wrapped my arms around myself as the wind picked up. The porch light flickered on. I used to feel safe under its glow. Now it felt like a warning. Tomorrow, I would find help. Someone. Anyone. Because if I didn't speak up soon, I was afraid I'd be silenced forever. And something in my gut told me, this was only the beginning. They told me I was imagining things, that my memory wasn't what it used to be, that I should relax, rest, stop worrying so much. But I could see it, the way they looked at me, like I was a problem waiting to happen. Inside my own house, I became a stranger. I'd go to pour myself tea, and Erica would swoop in. "Let me get that, Margaret," she'd chirp. But it wasn't kindness. It was control. They rearranged the furniture. They changed the kitchen drawers. I'd go looking for my knitting, only to find the yarn donated. My calendars disappeared. My mail was opened. My name fading like dust on the bookshelf. I wasn't living. I was observing. At breakfast, I asked what day it was. A simple question. Tuesday, my son said too quickly. I checked the wall calendar when they left. It was Sunday. I used to be the one holding this family together, bandaging scraped knees, teaching spelling, baking pies for the holidays. Now I had to ask for permission to go outside. Where's my phone? I asked. Oh, you left it in the freezer, Erica said, laughing like I was some sweet lost woman, but I hadn't touched the freezer. They started giving me pills. For your anxiety, they said. I didn't remember being diagnosed. I didn't remember asking for help. I didn't even remember seeing a doctor recently. But they kept insisting. You've been sleeping so much lately, Erica would say. Maybe because whatever was in those pills made me feel like I was underwater. And the house, my house, felt different. It used to smell like cinnamon and books. Now it smelled like lemon cleaner and distance. Doors were always slightly ajar. Whispers followed me like shadows. I missed my books. I missed my long walks. I missed my old self. One afternoon, I sat on the porch. Just sat. Erica came rushing out. You can't be out here by yourself. Why not? It's windy. I stared at her. It was 72 degrees. Not about leaf moved. That night, I heard them talking in the hallway. She's slipping, Erica whispered. Just a few more weeks and it'll be too late for her to change anything. Change what? The next morning, they let me in. Quietly, cautiously. But something had shifted. I wasn't welcomed home. I was managed. I noticed it in the small things. My favorite mug was gone, replaced with a plastic cup. My knitting needles were moved out of reach. Even the television remote had disappeared. Every choice now came with a gatekeeper. Take your medicine, Mom, Erica said, handing me 2 pills, but I didn't recognize them. What are these? Just vitamins. She smiled, too wide. You've been forgetting them lately. I knew better than to argue. I took them, pretending to swallow, and tucked them in my pocket. They watched me constantly. Every step I took, every glance at a clock. My privacy vanished like mist. At night, I lay in my bed, no lock on the door, and wondered how love had become this. A cage built from concern, lined with control. Then, one night, I heard her voice again. Erica, on the phone. She won't fight it, she said. She never has. And I knew then, they were counting on my silence. The room they gave me wasn't really mine. It used to be the guest room, then the storage room. Beige walls, one narrow bed, a dresser with a wobbly drawer. No pictures, no warmth, no trace of me in it, except my folded clothes. I started cleaning just to keep busy. The act of folding, wiping, and organizing was the only thing that still felt like mine. But even that felt watched. Erica always appearing in doorways, asking if I was all right, with a voice sweet enough to rot teeth. I opened the dresser one afternoon and found the bottom drawer stuck. It had been jammed for weeks. With a little push, it came loose. Inside were odds and ends. A half-burnt candle, a broken necklace, some old envelopes. I almost closed it again, but something caught my eye. Paper, folded twice, tucked under the lining. I pulled it out. It was a letter, in my handwriting, dated 6 months ago. My heart beat faster as I opened it. Margaret, it began. If you're reading this, you're being pressured. Remember, you are not forgetful. You are not sick. You are being manipulated. The accounts are in your name. The deed is in your name. Contact Mr. Keating immediately. His number is written below. Don't let them sign anything. Don't hand over your keys. I stared at the words until they blurred. I had written this. I had known. And then somehow I had forgotten. Not because of age, because of them, because of the pills, because of the constant correction, the subtle shaming, the way they spoke to me like I was slipping away. I gripped the note tighter. My hands shook, but not from weakness, from fury. I wasn't losing my memory. I was being erased. I closed my eyes and let the truth settle over me. It was like stepping out of fog into sunlight. Everything sharpened. The conversations, the hidden mail, the doctor's orders I'd never heard myself. All of it snapped into place. Gaslighting. They'd be implanting seeds of doubt, and I'd been watering them with my trust. No more. I tucked the note under my pillow for a moment, breathing slow. In the stillness of the small room, I saw my life stretching back, the classroom chalk dust, the smell of library books, the laughter of children. My son's first bike ride, his high school graduation, the promises I made to myself after my husband died, that I'd stay independent, stay alert, stay whole. I had kept those promises. They were the ones breaking theirs. I slipped the note into my pocket and sat on the bed, mind racing. Mr. Keating. I remembered him, my lawyer, from when my husband and I updated our wills. A careful, steady man. He'd told me once, if anything feels wrong, call me directly. I needed to call him, but my cell phone was gone. Then I remembered. The landline in the hallway. An old rotary phone no one ever used. They might have forgotten it existed. I waited until the house went quiet. Erica had gone to pick up groceries. Daniel was in the barn. The hum of the refrigerator was the only sound. I slipped out of the room and down the hall, bare feet on the cool wood floor. Each step felt like a rebellion, each breath a countdown. The phone sat on a little table under the stairs, covered in dust. I lifted the receiver. It still had a dial tone. My heart pounded. I pulled the note from my pocket and read the number I'd written months ago. I dialed. 1 ring, 2, 3. Then a voice. Calm, familiar. Keating Law. This is Mr. Keating. I closed my eyes, relief washing over me. Mr. Keating, I whispered, my voice trembling but clear. It's Margaret. I think they're trying to take everything. The day after I called Mr. Keating, the air felt lighter. Not because things had changed yet, but because I had spoken the truth aloud. It was no longer a secret I carried by myself. But the house still felt like a cage. I wasn't allowed to drive. My phone was still gone. My son and Erica still hovered like guards in soft voices. Every, "How are you feeling?" sounded like a test. That afternoon, while they were out shopping, I stepped onto the porch and sat on the old swing. The wood creaked beneath me, familiar and steady. From here I could see the street, the fence line, and beyond it, the house of Ruth, my neighbor for 20 years. Ruth had always been steady too. Widow, church volunteer, known for her rose garden and her quiet way of noticing things. She'd been at the funeral, she'd brought me soup afterward. And lately, she'd been watching me, concern etched across her face when she thought I didn't see. Now she crossed the street, slowly, carrying a bag of lemons from her tree. Her gray braid swung against her back. She stopped at the bottom of my steps. "Margaret," she said softly, "you've been on my mind." I managed a small smile. "Thank you for the lemons." She didn't smile back. "Can we talk?" I glanced toward the driveway. Empty. "We have a few minutes." She came up the steps and sat beside me on the swing. The creak grew louder, like a third voice. "I don't want to overstep," Ruth began, "but I've noticed some things." My heart thudded. "What things?" "The locks changed," she said simply. "I saw Daniel replace them. And your car, it's been gone for weeks. I know you still drove every Sunday, and you haven't been to church. I looked at her hands, weathered from years in the garden. She clasped them together tightly. You don't have to tell me anything, she said, but you look tired and scared. My throat closed. No one had said that to me, not even Mr. Keaty. People had offered advice, but no one had named what I felt. They've taken my keys, I whispered. My phone. They're saying I'm forgetting things, but I'm not. Her eyes softened. I didn't think you were. I swallowed hard. They're planning something. Papers. Maybe the house. Maybe more. Ruth nodded slowly. I figured as much. You've always been careful with your affairs. You wouldn't suddenly hand things over. I blinked back tears. You believe me? I've known you 20 years, she said. I've seen you walk to my house every morning at 8 like clockwork. I've seen you teach my grandkids their times tables. You're sharp as a tack. I let out a shaky laugh. Thank you. She reached into her bag and handed me a folded paper towel. Inside was her phone number written in bold ink. If you need me to testify, she said quietly, I will. About the locks. About the car. About what I've seen. I stared at the number. For the first time in weeks, I felt like a person again, not a problem. You'd do that for me? I asked. I'd do it for the truth, she said simply, and for a friend. The porch swing creaked again. The world felt less tilted. They think I won't fight, I said, almost to myself. They're wrong, Ruth replied. I closed my fingers around the paper towel like it was a lifeline. We sat there in silence, the smell of lemons between us, the hum of cicadas rising in the distance. My heart slowed, my breathing steadied. I could feel my strength returning, like a current flowing back into my veins. Then Ruth leaned closer, lowering her voice. There's something else you should know. My stomach tightened. What? I also saw them go into the storage unit, she said. Your name was still on the lease. I didn't sleep the night Ruth told me about the storage unit. I kept picturing it in my mind. A cold metal door, rolled down, holding pieces of my life I thought were gone forever. Things they told me had been donated. Things they said I didn't need anymore. By morning, I had made up my mind. Ruth drove. She insisted, said I didn't need to face it alone. I held the key she gave me, still registered under my name. That tiny piece of metal felt heavier than it should have, like it held history. The drive was quiet. My hands trembled in my lap. I hadn't left the house without permission in weeks. But this wasn't a trip. It was a reckoning. When we pulled into the facility, the desert wind whipped my hair into my face. The storage units stretched in neat rows, silent, impersonal, locked. Unit 17C. I stepped out and walked toward it slowly. Ruth stayed by my side. I slid the key into the lock. It turned smoothly, like it had been waiting. The metal door groaned open. Inside, dim light filtered through the slats. Dust danced in the air. Cardboard boxes were stacked in the back. A few plastic bins. A trunk I hadn't seen since my husband passed. And then, something hit me. The scent. Old linen, paper, cedar from my dresser drawers. This was my life. These were supposed to be gone, I whispered. They didn't donate anything, Ruth said softly. They just hid it. I stepped inside, my shoes crunching over bits of gravel. I reached for the first box. Labeled, Margaret, Misk. I peeled back the tape. Inside were photo albums, my wedding album, my baby's hospital bracelet, handwritten recipes from my mother, a dried rose from my retirement party. I covered my mouth, tears brimming. "These were my memories," I whispered. "They said I forgot them." Ruth didn't speak. She didn't have to. I opened another box. Diaries. Years of them. My private thoughts. My fears. My prayers. Pages and pages of who I was. "They didn't even read them," I said bitterly. "They just threw them in here like junk." A file folder sat at the bottom. I picked it up, hands shaking. Inside was a copy of my will from 5 years ago, the original signed by me and notarized. I flipped through it. My house, my accounts, my car. All in my name. Not shared. Mine. I had set it up after Charles died, with help from Mr. Keating. I'd forgotten, buried in grief. But it was all there. Every legal seal. Every date. I felt a heat rising in my chest. Not fear. Not sadness. Anger. They knew this existed. That's why they locked it away. That's why they told me I was forgetful. That's why they smiled and said, "Let us handle it." I stood taller. "They've been planning this," I said. "Not just weeks. Months." Ruth nodded slowly. "And you've got the proof now." I reached for another bin. Inside was a framed photo of my husband, Charles. I stared at his eyes. "You always said I was strong, Charles." I didn't believe it. Until now. At the bottom of the trunk was a manila envelope, worn and thick. I picked it up, curious. It had my name on it, in Charles's handwriting. Margaret Ann Carter, property deed, house title, vehicle registration. I opened it carefully, the edges crisp with age. There it was. The notarized deed to the house, dated 2 years before Charles passed. His signature, my signature, 2 witnesses, the legal seal from the county clerk, my name, and only mine, sole owner. I stared at it for a long time. All this time, I thought they were helping me. I thought they were protecting me from forgetting, from slipping, from losing. But they were stealing, and they almost got away with it. I turned to Ruth, who stood frozen near the door. "Do you see this?" I said, my voice rising. She nodded, tears in her eyes. "I see it, Margaret." "They wanted me to think I was helpless," I said. "But I'm not. I was never losing it." "No," Ruth said firmly. "You were surviving it." I felt the burn in my throat again, but I didn't cry. Not this time. I tucked the deed into my purse like a sword returned to its sheath. This wasn't just a document, it was a weapon. And now I had it. I sat in the quiet of Mr. Keating's office, the kind of place that smelled like old books and steady hands. It felt safe. The folder in my lap felt heavier than its papers. It held my name, my truth, and everything they tried to hide. Mr. Keating looked over his glasses as he flipped through the documents I brought, the notarized deed, my late husband's will, and the doctor's letter confirming I was mentally fit. Not just fit, clear, capable. "Margaret," he said softly, "this is solid." I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. He took the papers and laid them out across his big oak desk, one by one, arranging them like pieces of a puzzle. "This deed," he tapped it, "names you sole owner. No transfers, no co-owners. And this," he held up the will, "backs it up." I knew something was wrong, I whispered. I just didn't know how deep it went. Mr. Keating nodded. "Your instincts were right. They've been playing a dangerous game." He reached into a drawer and pulled out a file I hadn't seen before. "I did some digging after your call. Your son, Tyler, filed a power of attorney 6 months ago. It gives him full control over your finances and property. What? I sat forward. I never signed anything. I know, he said. And the signature on it doesn't match yours. Not even close. I've already spoken to a handwriting analyst. They agree. My mouth went dry. My own child faked my signature. My own son. I stared at the floor, the patterns in the carpet swimming in my eyes. Margaret, he said, gently but firmly, you're not alone in this, and you're not helpless. I feel like I've been sleepwalking, I murmured, like they built a cage around me and I didn't notice until it locked. He leaned forward. Well, you're awake now, and that cage, and we're tearing it down. I looked at him. What happens next? We file. Probate court first. We'll submit your will and deed, challenge the POA, and bring your medical documents to prove your capacity. I nodded. And Tyler? He paused. He won't go quietly, but the law is on your side. That gave me something I hadn't had in weeks. Breath. I pulled out the list I'd found. Every account I could remember, every safe deposit key, every detail I wrote to myself before the world went sideways. We checked it line by line. You did more for yourself than most people twice your age, he said with a quiet smile. You planned ahead. I had to, I said. I was a teacher for 40 years. If I didn't prepare, who would? Mr. Keating chuckled, but then grew serious. There's one more thing. What is it? We'll need to involve law enforcement. Forging legal documents. It's a felony. The word hit me like ice on the back of the neck. You mean Tyler could go to jail? Yes. I sat back, stunned. He's still my son. I know, he said gently, but he made choices. This wasn't a mistake, Margaret. It was a plan. I looked down at my hands, wrinkled, steady. You're right, I said, my voice hardening. He counted on me being silent, on me being scared, but I'm not anymore. Mr. Keating tapped the deed again. This is power, Margaret, not just legal, personal. You own this land. You own your life. I nodded. He slid over a document. Sign this affidavit. It starts the process. I took the pen. My hand didn't shake. With one signature, I reclaimed what they tried to take. They said I was forgetting, I whispered. But I remembered the truth. Mr. Keating looked at me over the top of his glasses. Good. Because we're going to need you clear for what's next. I met his eyes. I am. He leaned back, folding the papers neatly. Next stop, the courthouse. But first, I'll make a call to T. He precinct. We'll need to open a fraud investigation. I swallowed hard. This is really happening. It is. There was a knock at the door. His assistant poked her head in. Detective Rowe is on the line. You want to take it? Mr. Keating gave me a nod. Here we go. He picked up the phone and pressed the speaker button. Detective, this is Attorney Keating. I have a case of elder fraud, and we have the evidence ready. I sat straighter. Not afraid. Not anymore. As he listed the facts, I thought about all the times I was told to sit down, to rest, to stop asking questions. About the nights I stared at the ceiling, wondering if maybe they were right. They weren't. They had the paperwork, but I had the proof. They had control, but I had the truth. Mr. Keating ended the call and looked at me with steady eyes. We're going to need the police involved. And I nodded. Let's do it. I sat by the window that morning, clutching the cup of tea Ruth had handed me. My hands were still, but my heart wasn't. Every few minutes, I glanced at the driveway, half expecting nothing, half expecting everything. Then I saw them. 2 patrol cars, 1 unmarked sedan. They pulled in slowly, doors opened, uniforms stepped out, and behind them, Mr. Keating. My son, Tom, came out onto the porch with that fake, casual smile he always wore when he was nervous. "Officers," he said, stepping down the steps. "There's been a misunderstanding. My mother's not well. She forgets things. She thinks—" But they didn't let him finish. "Sir," the taller officer said firmly, "we're here under Judge Hartley's emergency protective order, issued this morning. We need to speak with Mrs. Margaret Hill immediately." I pushed open the front door before Tom could stop them. "I'm here," I said, my voice louder than it had been in days. Tom turned, his face pale now. "Mom, please," he said, lowering his voice. "You shouldn't be out here. Why don't you go rest, and I'll handle—" But the officer held up his hand. "Sir, step aside." Mr. Keating nodded at me. "Do you have the documents with you?" I reached into my sweater pocket and pulled out the will, the deed, and the medical letter from Dr. Stein declaring my cognitive health as fully sound. The other officer took them gently. "Thank you, ma'am." Tom stepped back. "You don't understand. She's been confused lately. She's been writing things down twice, forgetting appointments. I've been helping her. That's all." "Actually," Mr. Keating said, "you've been helping yourself. Filing fraudulent documents, taking her keys, cutting off access to her accounts." One of the officers tilted his head. "We've seen enough." Tom laughed nervously. "You can't just walk in here and assume she's fine. I mean, look at this. She got these papers from some storage box. This is crazy." The officer looked at me. "Ma'am, do you know where you are?" "Yes," I said. "This is my home." "Do you know what year it is?" 2025. He nodded. "And do you want your son to have control over your property and health care?" "No," I said clearly. "I want control over my own life." Tom stepped closer. "Mom, please, don't do this. Everything I've done for you." "For me?" I said quietly. "You threw away my journals. You told people I was slipping. You hid my own husband's will. That wasn't for me, Tom. That was for you." Mr. Keating opened his briefcase and handed another document to the officer. "This is the original power of attorney filed by Mr. Hill, her husband, 10 years ago. It was never revoked. Tom forged a new one. Dates, signatures, everything. We've already had it verified." The officer took a deep breath and turned to my son. "Sir, we'll need you to come with us." Tom blinked, as if the words hadn't registered. "What? Wait, no, you can't be serious. She's confused. She doesn't know what she's saying." "I'm not confused," I said. He looked at me. "Mom, it's me. Yo, Ersan. You really want to do this to me?" "No," I said. "You did it to yourself." The cuffs clicked behind his back. He jerked away once, but didn't resist after that. My daughter-in-law peeked through the curtains, but didn't come outside. As they led him to the car, he turned back one last time. "This isn't over," he said. But it was. For me, at least. The officer handed me a copy of the judge's order. "You're in full control of your estate again. No one can touch it without your consent. We've also filed a no-contact request. If he tries anything else, call us." I nodded, trying to steady my hands. Ruth stepped beside me, squeezing my shoulder. "You okay, Margaret?" she asked softly. I looked out at the porch, at the garden overgrown, at the window shutters hanging crooked where Tom said he'd fix them, but never did. "Yes," I said. "I think I'm finally okay." But deep down, I knew this wasn't just about okay. This was about reclaiming something they'd tried to bury. Not just my rights, not just my house, but me. I walked back inside, still holding the judge's order. The house felt different. Not lighter, exactly, but no longer hostile. The air wasn't pressing down anymore. I opened the kitchen drawer. My phone was there. Battery dead. dusty, but mine. My car keys sat beneath a towel in the junk drawer. They'd been there all along. They hadn't donated my things. They just hid them. I picked them up and held them for a long while. This wasn't just about what they took. It was about what I'd let them, because I loved them, because I trusted them. But love without respect? That's not love. That's control. And now the control was mine again. I stood by the window, watching the cars disappear down the hill. And I whispered, "Not safe on my own, huh?" No, I was never unsafe. But now, I was finally free. And just then, Mr. Keating stepped inside again. He cleared his throat. "Margaret, I hate to say it, but we're not done yet. The documents he filed may have been part of something bigger." I turned. "What do you mean?" He held up a nothing. "Air file. This isn't just a civil matter anymore, it's criminal." I felt the weight return to my chest, but only for a second. "I'm ready," I said. He nodded. "Good. Because next, we go to court." I didn't expect a crowd. But by the time the unmarked car pulled into the driveway with its silent wait, neighbors had already begun to gather across the street. Ruth stood beside me on the porch. Her hand found mine, steady, warm. The officer stepped out first, then the detective, and behind them, my son and daughter-in-law. Cuffed. I couldn't breathe for a second. They didn't fight it this time. No yelling, no show, just lowered heads and silence that felt heavier than shouting ever could. I don't know who called the neighborhood watch, or if it was just the way news spreads in a town like this, quiet but fast, like wind through brittle trees. But people were there, people who had seen me walk the block for decades, people who smiled when I brought cookies to HOA meetings, people who had started looking through me the last few months, like I was already half gone. Now they saw. The detective turned and read the charges aloud, not for drama, but for record. Elder financial abuse, fraud, intent to falsify legal documentation, coercion through power of attorney misuse. My son flinched at every word, but never looked at me. My daughter-in-law, her lips trembling, finally whispered, "This wasn't supposed to happen. We were protecting her." "Protecting me?" I said softly. "From what? My memories?" She didn't answer. Ruth stepped forward. "We saw what you did. You didn't protect her. You erased her." And that was it. No screaming, no denials, just the clink of metal, the opening of a car door, and the sound of justice finally stepping forward. The neighbors didn't cheer. They didn't need to. They nodded. A few walked over, tentative, like I might break if they touched me. "Margaret, we're so sorry. We didn't know. I should have said something." I nodded, not because I forgave them just yet, but because I understood. Sometimes, silence isn't evil. It's just fear wearing a mask. But fear didn't live here anymore. The police left. The neighbors drifted home. Ruth kissed my cheek and whispered, "I'll be by tomorrow." And then I was alone again. But it didn't feel lonely. I stepped back into the house. The door clicked behind me with a sound that used to hurt. Now it sounded like ownership, like truth, like home. I walked through the living room, past the stack of mail Tom never gave me, past the kitchen drawer where my medical notes were stuffed behind old coupons, and into my bedroom. There on the dresser, something stopped me. A photo, torn and taped back together. It was of my husband, the one we'd taken on our 30th anniversary. He was holding my hand, laughing like the world couldn't touch us. But the tape was crooked, new. I picked it up carefully, and written in little shaky handwriting on the bottom edge was a note. He always smiled at you like you were the answer to a question. Love, Grace. My granddaughter. The one person who hadn't stood by as they took my keys. The one who had tiptoed in after school, asking if I needed anything. The one who left sticky notes on my tea canister when my memory felt fuzzy. The one who saw me, not as a burden, but as Grandma. I held the photo to my chest and cried. Not because I was broken, but because something inside me had been mended. The arrest wasn't the ending. It was the beginning. And Grace. Grace had just reminded me what I was fighting for. I was sitting on the porch when I heard the car pull up. It wasn't the sound of the engine that got to me. It was the door, slammed shut in a way that said whoever was coming couldn't wait another second. Grace. She stepped out of that car like a storm had thrown her forward. Her eyes were already red, her hair was a mess, and she was holding something in her hand and her fingers were shaking. She didn't speak at first. She just ran to me, and then she hugged me like she'd been drowning and I was the shore. "Grandma," she whispered. "I didn't know. I swear, I didn't know." I held her tight. My arms knew what to do, even when my heart was still unsure. I didn't need to say anything just yet. Her tears said it all. We sat there for a while, the sun settling low behind the mountains, the air thick with everything left unsaid. Then she pulled back and looked me in the eyes. "I thought you were traveling. That's what Mom and Dad told me. That you'd gone to live in Arizona or... I don't know. I kept calling, but they said you didn't want to talk. That it was better if we all gave you space." I couldn't stop the small laugh that came out, bitter, hollow. "Space?" I said. "They locked me out of my own life." Grace flinched like I'd slapped her. "I'm so sorry. I should have... God, I should have come. I should have checked. But I trusted them. I believed them. And now I feel like I was part of it." "No," I said firmly. "Don't carry their sins. You didn't know. And now you're here. That means everything." She nodded slowly, wiping her eyes. Then she pulled something from her pocket. "I found this in the trash," she said. "In Dad's office. It's one of your old photos, torn in half. I taped it back together." She handed it to me. It was a photo of me and my husband on the day we bought the house. I remembered the moment so clearly. My hands in his, the sold sign in the background. We looked so full of hope. They had tried to throw that memory away, but Grace had rescued it, just like she was rescuing me now. "I hate them for what they did to you," she whispered. "Don't waste your hate," I told her gently. "Hate is heavy. We carry it when they've already walked away." She looked at me like she was trying to memorize every wrinkle on my face. "What happens now?" I took a breath. "I've started rewriting the papers, with the lawyer, the will, the trust, the property." Grace blinked. "You're changing it all?" "Yes," I said. "Because I want this land, this house, this legacy, protected. And I want to give it to someone who understands what it means to care. Not just to claim." She was quiet. Her hands were clenched tight in her lap. "Your name," I continued, "will be on those papers." Her mouth fell open. "What?" "You've shown me more love in one afternoon than they have in years, and I won't let them take from you what they tried to steal from me." "But, Grandma, I don't need anything. I just wanted you to know that I care, that I believe you. I don't need land or money." I smiled. "That's exactly why you deserve it." She started crying again, soft this time, the kind of tears that cleanse instead of cut. You taught me how to plant tomatoes, she whispered, and how to sew buttons, and how to sit with someone in silence without making it awkward. I never forgot those things. I reached over and took her hand. I know, I said, and I never forgot you either. We sat there as the sky turned gold, then purple. A quiet peace fell between us. And in that stillness, I realized something. I wasn't just taking my life back. I was planting it forward. For her, for Grace, for the part of the family that remembered how to love. I turned to her one last time that evening and said, I'm rewriting the papers, but this time, your name will be on them. The first thing I did was paint the front door red again. Not just any red. My red. The same color it was the day we moved in, when the world was younger, and my husband stood behind me holding a box of books and grinning like we'd just found heaven on earth. They'd painted it gray last year. Dull, lifeless. A color that made the house look like a waiting room, like it was meant to be passed through and forgotten. But this house had never been a stopover. It was a beginning. So I opened the old can I found in the shed. Thank God they hadn't thrown that out too, and got to work. Brushstroke by brushstroke, I reclaimed what was mine. I didn't stop there. The next morning, I called the locksmith. He came with a smile and no questions, just a gentle, "Where would you like to start?" "All of it," I said. "Front door, back, windows, garage, shed, every lock in this place." He nodded and got to work. When he was done, he handed me a fresh set of keys, 5 silver ones, cool in my hand. I didn't cry. Not then. But I did close my eyes and hold them for a moment longer than I needed to. I think part of me just needed to feel that cold certainty in my palm, the proof that control had returned to me. No one could lock me out of my own life again. Not with these. I slipped the keys into my pocket and exhaled. Home. It felt like home again. A few days later, Grace came over with flour on her shirt and a grin on her face. "Ready?" she asked, holding up a recipe card. "Peach cobbler, my mother's recipe. I hadn't made it in years." We rolled up our sleeves and started mixing, the kitchen filled with the smell of butter, cinnamon, and something else I'd almost forgotten: laughter. We talked while it baked. She told me about college, about the internship she was hoping to get, about the boy who brought her flowers when she had a migraine, and then left a sticky note on her windshield that said, "Even strong women need rest." I told her about her grandfather, about the time he fixed the broken gate using a belt, a spoon, and 3 curse words he thought I didn't hear. About the way he used to leave notes in the mailbox, even when we lived in the same house. I showed her one. I'd kept it in a drawer. It read, "Don't forget, you're the heart of this home." She pressed her hand to her chest and said, "He was right." Later that evening, I met with Mr. Keating again. This time, the paperwork as mine. No forged signatures, no hidden agendas. Just truth. We updated my will. Grace's name went in as my executor and sole beneficiary. The house, the land, the little savings account that held just enough for someone to start over. "She's earned it," I told him. "Not because she's family by blood, but because she showed up when it mattered." He nodded. "You're not just giving her property, Margaret. You're giving her a story and a lesson." "I hope so," I whispered. "I hope that when she's my age, she'll remember what it took to hold on to yourself when the world tries to take you apart." That weekend, we hosted a little dinner. Just the 2 of us and a few of the neighbors who had stood by me. Ruth brought fresh rolls. Mr. Keating actually smiled, which I didn't think lawyers were allowed to do. We laughed. We ate. We passed stories around the table, like they were heirlooms. And somewhere between the mashed potatoes and the lemon pie, I looked around and realized, this is what survival looks like. Not just the fight, but the rebuild. The choosing to smile again. The planting of flowers in places that once held grief. After everyone left, I stood at the threshold of my home, the red door glowing under the porch light. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the keys again. They were mine, truly mine. Not because a locksmith said so, not because a lawyer notarized it, but because I'd walked through hell to get them back and come out whole. There was a torn photograph once, one of me and my husband. They'd tried to rip it apart, but Grace had taped it back together. That photo sits framed now on the mantel, not because it's perfect, but because it survived. Like me, this home holds echoes of laughter, of betrayal, of reclaiming, and now, of healing. I locked the front door that night with a steady hand, turned the key slowly, smiled. They took my keys, but they forgot I kept the truth. And now, the lock only answers to me.